What's going on, guys? JD at JD's Custom Buggies. Want to give you an update on the 200X. So we finally got it to where it actually rolls. Had a couple issues. So in the last video we talked about I didn't get the stem and the bearing kit. Still waiting on that stuff. Actually, the bearing kit came in this huge box. So we're like, oh cool, it's here, right after we got it all together. And then it was just the bearings and no stem. But I was about to fire them off an email saying, hey, I got these bearings, but I didn't get a stem yet. But I checked the tracking on the email they gave me, and there's still a package, according to USPS tracking, that's supposed to arrive Monday, tomorrow. So I'm gonna wait to see if something actually comes, and we'll go from there. In the meantime, had some issues with putting this all together, making this work. Just my luck, you know. I just want to buy a kit and have it just bolt right up and everything, and it didn't happen that way. So with the kit, like I said, you get the trees. Supposed to get the stem and the bearings. They give you an axle and spacers. The spacers that came in the kit, and I don't know, maybe I got the wrong item, or you know, and I don't know. I just made it work. I don't know if anybody else had this issue or might have this issue, and that's the only reason I'm telling you what I had to do to make this all work. So the spacers that come with the axle, there's one shorter one, there's one longer one. They're about a 1/4 inch difference. When we first tried to put this wheel in there, the hub plus the spacers, too wide, couldn't get them in. Not only that, the wheel wasn't centered. So I ended up making a spacer to put on the left side, because the stock position for the rotor is supposed to be on, you know, in the stock, when the hub is the way it's supposed to be with the stock forks, it's supposed to be on the right. Well, now with the CRF forks, it's going to be on the left, which is, I checked our photos out, that's the way it's supposed to be. So we got the wheel up there. I kind of had a makeshift spacer that I had made that was a lot shorter, because we needed to bring this wheel over, you know, so the rotor was somewhere close to the caliper. We got it in there and found out, the wheel was like a 1/4 inch to the right. The rotor wasn't exactly where I needed it to be, but we did get the caliper on there. We spread the caliper, got it on there, and then when we went to rotate the wheel, there is an adapter on the stock rotor. There's 3 bolts, and then there's an adapter that they supply you to put a CRF 150 rotor on there. It's got the 3 bolts that bolt up with the rotor bolts, and then it's hub centric, so it's recessed, so the rotor fits and basically puts it in the same position it's supposed to be in. It might bump it out a little bit because of the thickness of the spacer that they give you. And then the rotor from the CRF has 4 bolts that are not recessed at all. They stick out. And then what we had the issue with, when we tried to spin the wheel, those rotor bolts were hitting the caliper bracket. So I kind of put it back to the drawing board. So not only did I need to move this wheel over, but they were already hitting the caliper bracket. So then, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do at that point. Just nothing was kind of meshing up. So went back in the office and looked at the photos that they got on their website. Went through the YouTube channel, didn't find any installation videos whatsoever. So got to thinking and got the stock rotor out and kind of sized it up, and it was close enough to the size of the CRF 150 rotor in diameter. So I said, let me go back and maybe put the stock rotor back on there and see what I end up with. That helped out a lot, because I didn't have these bolts that are holding the rotor, weren't spaced out to where they were hitting the caliper bracket. So started, you know, backwards engineering it, put the stock rotor on, put the 3 bolts in. Normally stock, they actually have 3 studs that pop out of here with nuts, and so we ended up taking those studs out to put their spacer back in. So I just used 3 bolts. made a new spacer, come to the conclusion, and this is the other thing, is with the spacers on, the CRF 150 forks, they actually, the way they're made, they actually have like, which works great for the dirt bike, but you know, they have bosses that stick out inboard. That's not a thing on the stock stock TRX, or I'm sorry, the stock ATC fork. So you have to use the bolt that they supply you to make this work with the CRF 150 fork, because the other one has to like lock on clamp over here. So you can't use the stock axle anymore with this kit. So at that point, when I got the wheel, I cut a new spacer. I made a new spacer, and it's flush with the oil seal, or the dust seal that's in there for the bearing. And that's about the measurement I needed to move this wheel over. So I cut a new spacer. It's flush in there with the seal. Moved the wheel over, but then the next issue is I couldn't get the caliper in there. There wasn't enough room between where the caliper mounts. I know it's hard to tell because I got the fork guard. There wasn't enough room to squeeze the caliper bracket between the mount and the rotor. So back to the drawing board, I took the caliper back off. I popped the bracket off, took it apart, and put it in the mill and shaved it down. Kind of took a makeshift measurement. I didn't, you know, just kind of eyeballed it. Put it in the mill, and I just basically cleaned off, I would say a little under half of the original thickness, and that's pretty much what I need to. It's really close here. I don't know if you can get in there and see it's really close, but it's not hitting, and neither of those pieces are supposed to move. So fortunately, the rotor that I got with the 86 hub wasn't warped at all. So it's basically, as long as that rotor doesn't warp, she won't hit. So got the caliper in, and then at that point, everything kind of meshed and gelled together, and I'm dead center with the wheel. I took measurements from the edge of the wheel to the fork tubes. It's basically dead center where it needs to be. So I don't know if it's the kit. I don't know if it's me. This is my first time messing with this. So, you know, fortunately, I have the tools that I can kind of modify things the way I need to. So we finally got it working. So I'm happy with this outcome. Looking at the tire, we went with the 8-inch tire instead of the 7. I mean, it's close, but we're fine as far as clearance. Once I got all that together, we got that, you know, everything back together. We did put the missing piece back in there. Then it was just a couple of things that we ended up doing. I ended up getting CRF 150 fork guards for it. They're from Hiccups. I ended up having to take a Dremel and trim them because these kind of wrap around, which is fine for the dirt bike. You have plenty of space, but with these wheels, or you know, the width of this tire, and I might have got away with it if I used a 7-inch. Not sure, because it was on this side's a total wraparound, so I just kind of trimmed it straight as I could with the Dremel. I might take it back off and refinish it a little bit, but I just wanted to see at this point how much I would have to take off to make it work. So I got that side. This side, I didn't really have to trim it. It still has the wraparound. I just had to trim it enough to clear the rotor. So once I cleared the rotor, that was all I really needed to do. Use some Zeta aluminum bolts for here. I figured trying to stick with the red, white, and blue theme. I had I got a box of aluminum hardware, dirt bike hardware, you know, for plastics. So I ended up using the blue spacer and the red. I kind of wanted to keep it the red, white, and blue. Over here, I got some Mayer shrouds. They're actually a little larger than the stock shroud, and used the same bolts. Now I had to cut them down because these are M5s. They're not M6, and most of the Zeta kits are M5s, and the only M6 bolts, and the only M5s I had were way longer. And the stock bolts that came out of here, they're actually screws, but they're really, really short. So I ended up putting a nut on the end, taking the Dremel, and just trimming them down to the length I needed, because I just wanted to make it work. I would have used blue washers here, except that the ones that I had had a little lip of them, so they kind of made up inside the larger hole for the like dirt bike plastics. I ended up using flat ones. I only had them in red. The reason why I did that is you have to drill your own holes in here, and trying to get the one side and the other side to kind of line up so they're straight. I had to oblong the holes and kind of maneuvered around a little bit. So using the blue washer that had the recess in there wasn't working for me for the alignment. I needed a little bit of wiggle room, so they would kind of line up. And that was just all me. You have to drill your own hole, and I probably rushed it a little bit. Got some Zeta, for the what do they call it? The crankcase seal or bolts there for the timing cover. Just a little bit of aesthetics, and then we got a new skid plate on there. Had a little more protection. Now, since this has all been going down, I'm running into a couple of hiccups. One is the forks that I got on eBay didn't seem to leak at all, and then when I was messing around, when we were messing around putting the forks on and everything, I felt something oily on my hand. So this left side fork, she leaks just a hair. So I'm gonna have to change the seals in the fork. It'd probably be a good idea for me to do a little bit of research and probably change the seals and put new oil in the forks anyway. And then somehow, some way, she's starting to pee on the floor. She's got an oil leak somewhere. I haven't really had a chance. I need to turn it down and take some of the grime off. But under the OEM skid plate, there was a lot of gunk in there. So next thing I want to do before I fire it back up again is check the oil, make sure she, but that's the first sign of a leak I've seen since it's been in the shop. And this happened, I started noticing this. I gave it a couple of kicks and she fired up and wanted to kind of, just see with the new carb. And she did fire up real quick. I don't have any pegs on it. I took the shifter off right now. But basically, like 2 or 3 kicks and she fired right up with the new carburetor. Sounds pretty good. Might need to tune it a little bit, but I mean, it's right about there as far as that's concerned. And I haven't really taken it down the road yet. I'm waiting for pegs. So I got new pegs coming in. Should be in this week. I just took the old shifter off. I got some. I don't carry Torque One USA anymore, but I have some Torque One USA shifters. I wanted to see just for looks if I can find one that's comfortable that'll fit on there. They're dirt bike shifters, but just a kind of little more bling on there if I can get it to work. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing besides once the foot pegs get here. That's all that's left in the box. I mean, you saw the first video all the parts we had, and I got one box of a couple of things. One mistake I did make. I did order some foot pegs on eBay. Some guy had already had them cleaned up, powder coated and everything. I didn't like the spring, the springs were loose and they were kind of bent up, the old foot pegs. So I was like, well, this might be the quick, easy solution. But they don't fit because these are for an 86. The 86 and 87, the second gen ATC 200X. Apparently this is one of the changes they made. So this bracket here that bolts to the frame doesn't really line up with what I got going on over here. So, that didn't quite work out. The way that this is positioned, it hits everything. It hits the Kickstarter and everything. So I might put it on some ATC Facebook groups. I'm just looking to get my money back for them. But I did get, I forget what the company's called. I think it's Twisted Steel Fabricate, something on eBay I found. But they got a nice, good looking wide peg. They're not sprung, they just stay down. I'm just gonna go with those. And that's about it. So that's where we're at right now. She's running, she's leaking. We got our front end straightened out. I'm pretty happy about that. I'm still waiting on the ATC 350X fender and the foot pegs, and then a number plate right now until I figure out what I want to do for a headlight. So right now I'm just gonna slap a number plate on it just to close the big gap and give it a finished look. I boxed up all the OEM stuff, so I'm trying to keep all that organized just because I have so many old machines over there and I got a bunch of takeoff parts. So I was smart this time because we put it in a box and labeled the box, and at least it'll be easy to find later on. Brake lines I still have to figure out. I was looking for some steel braided lines. I have some EBC ones, but they're not going to work. They're actually for a Grom, and the rear is too short and the front is too long. So I try to use like opposite because on a Grom apparently that's the way they are. So was too long for the, I forget which one. I think the rear is the short one on the Grom, and I try to use the front one here, but it's too short for to use on the front brake, and it's too long to use on the rear brake. So I just figured it was in-house. I would try it out, it'd be easy. Really nice looking brake line, steel braided. EBC's proud of their stuff, says EBC all over it, but it ain't gonna work for this application. So I'll have to hunt down some brake lines. Caliper up front's new. The rear one, I've got new pads for, so I'm gonna change all that out. Plus, I got axle sprocket and rotor, got to change out and put a new chain on it. And then find the case saver for the side because it's missing the cover for the sprocket. So that's it for now. Give you an update when the rest of the parts come in. We have something finished to look at. And that's it. If you need parts, go to gotbuggies.com. If you like what you see, like and subscribe. Thanks a lot. JD's out.